I'm Janet Enever.
And I'm Eva Lindgren. And we're both researchers in early language learning at Umeå University. We would like to talk about our new book, Early Language Learning, Complexity and Mixed Methods, which is published with Multilingual Matters within a series that Janet is editing called Early Language Learning in School Contexts.
So for Multilingual Matters and for myself as series editor, it's a really exciting new opportunity because it's a new series launched just last year, 2016, and it's, I think, really the first series that addresses research in early language learning in school context specifically. We cover the age range of 3 to 12 years here, so it's preschool as well, and already we've got 6 books in the pipeline. So this is the first, which we want to talk about today. I guess really perhaps I should say a little bit about how this idea of wanting to focus on mixed methods research came about for us. It really dates back from our involvement in the ELLI study, which was 2007 to 10 roughly. Yep. And here we investigated early language learning in school contexts across 7 countries with a major research team. And that made us realise just how valuable mixed methods approaches to research were in looking at the complex context of the classroom. Maybe you'd like to say a little bit more about mixed methods research then.
Yes, it's an approach that hasn't been used in the field of early language learning for so long. So we're really happy that in this book we managed to get all these scholars together from different contexts to present their current research and their research findings and the way they have worked with mixed methods. So we think that this book is valuable for those 2 reasons, that it's current research and also that it's presenting studies that have used mixed methods. So the book contains, we have 16 chapters in the book, there are 26 authors, and they present studies from 14 countries in Africa, Asia, Europe and South America, so it takes quite a wide scope globally. And we're really delighted that this group of scholars managed to share this research with us in this book. As this research field is becoming more and more important in the world today, namely early language learning. And Janet, you know a bit more about that?
Well, I guess it covers really quite a wide range of fields, early language learning. There's so many aspects that you can look at to investigate the reality of the complexity. But what is very evident, if we look from a global perspective, is the number of children worldwide who are learning an additional language in the primary phase. The British Council some years ago did a little bit of an investigation to try and specifically look at the numbers of English language learners in primary schools, and they came up with a figure of approximately 500 million children worldwide who are learning English as an additional or foreign language worldwide.
Well, which is a lot.
It is, it's a huge number. And if we look more closely, let's say at the European context, which we're both based in, you can see the stats show that almost every context introduces an additional or foreign language from between the age of 6 years and 8 years to the primary context. So this is a massive field for exploring, not just in English, in every language. And that's what we attempt with this book, I think. You know.
Yeah, that's right.
So if I go on, we're going to maybe give some sense of the different themes that are covered in the book. And I'm quite interested to say a little bit about CLIL and medium instruction themes, because medium instruction has had a long history, and I think it's interesting to, in a sense, bring it up to date by positioning it in line with what's happening in this content and language integrated learning, or CLIL as it's known within the European context today. Medium instruction has a particular history in the colonial period when the colonialists introduced the education system in their national language. So, for instance, in India, English was introduced as the main medium instruction, the language in which all primary education was taught. Things are changing nowadays because for various reasons of independence and democracy. Interestingly, CLIL in a European context has been introduced mainly in secondary, but in some contexts in primary, whereby between 30 and 50% of the primary curriculum is taught in another language. And in many cases, mostly it's in English, so there are contexts in which a regional language is used. And it's a distinctively European initiative viewed as an opportunity to combine a subject another curriculum area with a language, and in other words, do two things in one in teaching. It's a contested area, but some examples in our book raise interesting issues connected with that. Maybe you can talk about other themes.
Yeah,
yes.
a theme that I find really central to this area is that language learning is about so many things. So, for example, using language is about communication. And in order to communicate, you need to master both speech and writing, and so oracy and literacy. So all these young children, they have to learn so many different skills, as well as a lot of vocabulary.
Absolutely.
And the teachers have to know how to deal with that, and how to help the children to develop and to move on. So these are also central themes of the book, where the authors write about oracy, literacy, vocabulary, and also how to evaluate those language skills. I think then that particularly, everything is important in the book, of course, but the chapters about evaluation are important for also for teachers.
True.
To get some insight and some more ideas about how they can do that. But it's not only that. The chapters about evaluation, as well as other chapters, include other factors that are important for language learning that are not the particular skills. And we saw that also from the Ellis study, that factors like motivation, like the parents, like the attitudes, how much you're exposed to the language outside the school is important. It does affect your development. So these are just some of that theme about language learning that the book covers. But there are also the approaches to teaching.
Teaching and learning, yes, absolutely. I think that there are some very interesting, there's a particularly interesting study that looks at the use of storybooks in the classroom. In this particular case, they have dual language storybooks, digital, so they have the virtual opportunity to engage in storytelling. And that's an interesting current development, I think, which has much potential to be taken further. Traditionally, storybooks have been viewed as very important for the primary classroom in the first language and increasingly in additional languages.
And now especially, I think, with the use of digital media, that becomes a really useful tool.
Very accessible for the child independently as well as for the classroom context. There's much more to explore in that field, I think, but it's good to have something as a starting point.
Yeah. Another theme that runs through the book is the value and the approach to language learning longitudinally. These studies are traditionally a little bit difficult to conduct, as we know, because you have to approach the same group of learners for a long time and follow them across a number of years, and that's sometimes a bit complicated. However, if you manage to do that, that provides really valuable insight into how the language develops, and also how the language development interplays with the other factors.
Absolutely.
Like the motivation, like the parents and so on. And I think what authors in our volume brings out is also how different learners develop differently.
Absolutely.
That there is a big variation in how children in the same classroom actually develop across...
according to many factors.
Yes.
And trying to pick up the complexity of those factors is a wonderful opportunity within a longitudinal study to tap into some of that. Yeah. So maybe we ought to sort of wind this up, because we could go on for a while, I think.
We could.
But maybe putting together the book is important. We began to understand more fully ourselves the value of a mixed methods approach to research, I think, because we could see across these different chapters just what a varied field it was and how many different ways of constructing mixed method research there are. And we feel, I think in our discussions we've come to an agreement that there's much more to be done in this field, but hopefully this book contributes a starting point which will encourage others to go further and to challenge, because this is continuing to be a contested area, I think.
It is, yes.
Those who are stuck who have a view that quantitative research is the best, those who have a view that qualitative research is the best, may not be happy for this mix, but we wish to encourage others to explore it, I think.
Yes, we do.
Yeah. Okay, maybe that's all we want to say.
Yes.